Elden Ring is an open-world adventure RPG by From Software that is the worst game ever made. No. No! I'm joking. In this video, we're not going to be explicitly exploring the game's mechanics in isolation, but rather how they affect the underpinnings of its story and world building. Namely, to answer the question, is this story any good? The topic of Elden Ring's story is actually more contentious than you'd think. Consider the accolades this game, and the Souls series in general, has received, versus the general perception of Soulsborne storytelling. I'd like to explore this divide and why I think it exists, and in doing so hopefully vocalize how a lot of people feel about this game and style of story. Full disclosure before we begin, for this exercise I played through the game for maybe the 6th or 7th time. I've gotten all endings, dabbed over every boss's corpse, done pretty much all the side quests. And I have watched lore videos in the past, but that was a long time ago. I considered watching them again for this video, but ultimately decided it'd be better to go in quote-unquote blind, to mimic a new player's experience, at least for story. Not for gameplay though, cause at this point, I'm a pro. Now let's get into it. First things first, Elden Ring, like most FromSoft games, engages in a story structure that I'm going to refer to as cloaked storytelling. What is that? Calm down, I'm going to tell you. The crux of cloaked storytelling is that the story is meant to be obscure. FromSoft games are notorious for hiding the meat of their world building in item descriptions, item placements, etc. Essentially, if you're illiterate, you're not getting the full picture. Now this is a type of storytelling unique to video games. Why? Because the player controls the camera, literally and figuratively. You can't do cloaked storytelling in a movie because the audience sees only what you allow them to see. You can't do it in a book either for the same reason. There's no way for the consumer to turn their head, so to speak. So yes, you can be subtle about your world building, but not nearly to the level of a game. In that sense, I do have to give FromSoft their laurels. This style essentially returns players whatever they choose to invest. You want to just oonga boonga your way through the lands between? Great, go for it. You want to learn everything there is to know about, Ronnie? Also go for it, you freak. Cloaked storytelling grants a freedom that makes it so FromSoft can have their cake and eat it too. Miyazaki gets to hide as many goodies as he wants in a description for some random guy's boots, and 5,000 lore videos will theorize that guy had God-blessed feet or something. Cloaked storytelling lowers the barrier to entry for casuals, because if you want to play Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate, you're going to have to learn a lot of names, a lot of lore, a lot of moving pieces. But if you want to play Elden Ring, what do you need to know? Nothing. You can hop right in and not think, but instead just play however you want to. However, this style does have its drawbacks. Like I said, FromSoft gets to craft a story, and George R.R. Martin gets to keep not finishing his own series. But what about the players? Well, I'd argue that this style, while beneficial to some, is a bit overdone. Let's circle back to my playthrough to explore this. What is the story of Elden Ring? Well, you're tarnished, previously exiled from the lands between, now back in town. You're gonna be Elden Lord one day, or Ronnie's consort if you're into that, or the seedbed curse guy if you're weird. You go around killing various bosses without saying a word to them, then the game ends. And that's it. On the surface, it's a very simple story, intentionally so. But what if you're curious? What if you want to know why? Answers don't come easily. And this, in my opinion, is the ultimate pitfall Elden Ring falls into. The story is too cloaked. The lore is too obscure. In some ways, the Lands Between feels like a safe option for FromSoft, because the Dark Souls series takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where everyone is out to kill you. Same with Bloodborne, whereas Elden Ring was supposed to be open world, new, different. But it isn't. Everyone wants to kill you, there are a few sane NPCs who you help out that usually just end up dying anyway. The story is just as obscure as the other games. And that isn't a bold step for FromSoft. It's more of the same. Now you probably noticed that I didn't mention one game when talking about major FromSoft titles. Well, 2, but I don't care about Armored Core and never will. What I'm referring to is Sekiro. That is a game that also uses cloaked storytelling, but to an extent I think is far more palatable. Play that game from start to finish and you get the basic plot, minus a few nuances. But do the same with Elden Ring and you're going to be left with far more questions than answers. Granted, Sekiro benefits greatly from being a far more linear story that is not open world. But even so, I don't think that excuses Elden Ring's intentional obtuseness. The lands between are a barren wasteland, I get it. But that doesn't mean they have to be empty of a cohesive story. One of the biggest complaints about this game is that the side quests are so needlessly hard to follow. Just like in previous games, these adventures amount to find the NPC. Where's Patches? Is he in a cave? No, he's on a cliff. No, he's in Volcano Manor. No, he's in the Shaded Castle. This was easier in other games that weren't open world, because you had less ground to cover. But in a game like Elden Ring, if you're trying to quest without a guide for the first time, you're not going to have a good time. Which leads into another point about cloaked storytelling: the void it creates. The large swaths of empty space in the lands between mean that you're essentially exploring a silent, dead world. Which I'm sure is intentional, I'm just not sure it's effective. Because what does being Elden Lord even mean? You beat the game, you sit on a throne, roll credits. In so many of the endings it's just throne, roll credits. Which I suppose makes them fittingly devoid of context. You don't get to see any results, you don't even get an idea of what happened, unless you either burned the entire world or married Snowy Smurf. As Elden Lord, why would I want to rule this place? It's trash. Everyone's insane and there aren't even that many major cities. I spoke earlier of how Elden Ring gives players freedom, and that is something I still stand by, but it also restricts them by narrowing the story players are able to create. When you put Nefeli on the throne of Stormvale, what happens? Nothing. The soldiers still attack you, it doesn't matter. She helps against Godfrey, but that's actually even more disappointing. Because there is zero interaction there despite them sharing a surname. Okay, why bother including that detail then? Why can't I talk to Melania? In my latest playthrough I actually killed Mog before her, so my sweet baby boy knows exactly where Mikola is. Why can't I say, "Hey, I know where your twin is, I'll show you in exchange for your great rune"? We know you can take the rune without killing someone thanks to Renala and her immaculate feet, but instead we just kill Melania because reasons. Speaking of, why can't I kill Renala? Or Ronnie? I'm out here murking everyone else in their nasty bloodline, let me have them too. And on murking, for the Volcano Manor questline, why am I killing random Tarnished? Why not have me kill actual NPCs that are semi-important, thus locking me out of storylines? That way there's an actual decision to be made when it comes to following this path. Have the targets be randomized from a list of allied NPCs and make it so no one is safe. Maybe they have you target Goldmask, or Nefeli, or Lady Fia. Again, that'd be a choice that creates a personal story. A story, mind you, that shouldn't be yours alone. Because we shouldn't be the only Tarnished trying to become Elden Lord. Yes, I know Vike exists, but he's locked up by the time we show up. This game should have had 3 or 4 Tarnished NPCs who are also vying for the throne. And they could be allies or enemies depending on if you do their quests or trigger certain events. I know all of these concepts are basically me asking for additional content. But these aren't just additions, they're adjustments that fundamentally change the game. Because vanilla Elden Ring can sometimes be empty. There were moments where I was taken out of the game because I questioned why things were happening and knew I wouldn't receive answers. I get why I'd fight Godfrey, we both just want to be king. But everyone everywhere attacks on sight. In Raya Lucaria, if I show up in wizard robes, does it really make sense that they'd gun me down? In Carrion Manor, I serve Ronnie directly. I'm married to her if you forgot. Stop attacking me! A cloaked story is a free one where your audience is at liberty to interpret and explore. But it is also a trap, because when your audience is allowed to look around, it's easier for them to spot holes, or create them due to misunderstanding. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I got something wrong in this video, story-wise, because I'm genuinely going off a casual playthrough, not an in-depth lore deep dive. And that is my point. In my opinion, storytelling works best when your casual audience knows the main story, and your more interested audience knows the rest. Everybody knows Darth Vader is Luke's daddy. But not everyone knows that the trash squid in A New Hope was Force sensitive, or about Chewbacca's daughter, or helicopter lightsabers, or that Palpatine's first name is Sheev. By the way, 3 of those are real and 1 is fake. I'm not saying which. The point is that Elden Ring does not meet that same standard. Yes, your superfans know who Saint Trina is, and know what happens in Windmill Village, and why the fire giant is up there just hanging out. But if you just play the game, there's a not insignificant chance that you'll have no idea what's going on. That, in my opinion, is a weakness, not a strength. And like I said, you can have obscure world building, but when that fog covers your story as well as your world, you have a problem, at least from a casual audience's perspective. In light of that, I cannot say the story here is good. I can say that the lore is good, but I can't say the story is. Because most people do not see under the cloak. They just see the surface. And what we see on the surface is...
okay.
It's a murder hobo story about killing your way into godhood. Which sounds cool when I say it out loud. But what's cooler is the story we don't see. The lore that isn't clear. And the absence of that lore's presence in the forefront, in my opinion, leaves this story... tarnished. I don't say all of this out of spite. Despite everything discussed, I do enjoy Elden Ring. I'm still excited to hop into the DLC and smack Mikola on the back of his stupid childlike head. This is a great game, and FromSoft deserves praise for their work. But just because something is great doesn't mean it can't be flawed. Just because you love something doesn't mean it's above criticism. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Like and subscribe if you would, because I've got more content coming related to nerdy topics. Let me know what your experience was with Elden Ring, and whether you think the story was effective. Or if you even understood it on playthrough number 1. Until the next vid, cheers!